Today we're going to be doing something fun. It's a thought experiment. Today is Prequels 1986. Basically, this started as an email chain between Russ and John and myself a few years ago. We were doing a thought experiment. One of the things that you run into when comparing the prequel trilogy films with the original trilogy films that makes it difficult to judge is the 16-year time gap between Return of the Jedi and The Phantom Menace. So a lot of things have changed. George Lucas has changed in terms of his sensibilities and the things he's interested in, and his thinking about Star Wars had evolved. The technology had evolved, the way films are made had changed, and they result in a lot of aesthetic differences between the two trilogies. And we were kind of wondering, well, what would the prequel films have been like had George Lucas continued on his new Star Wars film every 3 years pattern from Return of the Jedi, which came out in 1983? So that would mean that episode 1 would come out in 1986, and episode 2 would come out in 1989, and episode 3 would come out in 1992. And it was kind of a fun thought experiment, like who would be in them, who would direct them, what would the special effects look like. And we thought we'd revisit that and discuss the prequels that may have been in the 1980s, if they'd been made in the 1980s. So we're going to start. We've all made some choices for who will be cast in certain roles and who would have directed the films. And I think we're going to go around and say some names. Let's start with Anakin Skywalker, the hero of the prequel trilogy. Who would have played him circa 1986? John.
I think this was mentioned in our thread a while ago, and I think probably the most solid choice for something like that would have been like Val Kilmer, 1986. He's the prime Iceman Top Gun age. He has the brashness, a swagger to him, and a physical resemblance that where he looks like he could be a Skywalker with a bit of a Han Solo edge. Not only that, but as we've seen with history, Mad Mardigan and Willow, it's like, there you go. Like it's kind of like it's all kind of there as a package deal. And he also has the physical stature, I feel like, to convincingly convey the idea, and a brooding nature to convey the idea that he could be Darth Vader in the future. I think he works on literally like every level, the physicality, the excitement, the swagger, the idealism, and it going bad, you know? All of his iconic characters have a little bit of that edge in them, you know?
No, I think you're right. And something else we should just address is that we are operating on the assumption that George Lucas's conception of the Anakin Skywalker character in like 1984, 85 would have been a character closer in age to Luke in A New Hope, and not the 9-year-old that he eventually became in episode 1, just for the simple reason that I think he made the character 9 years old. He was a father of 3, he'd raised 3 kids, and I think his perspective changed. I think he got a little farther away from, he was very close to being that young man, and I think Luke Skywalker was kind of Lucas's alter ego, and I think he identified less with that as time wore on.
Yep.
What do you guys
I
feel about
I
that?
also do have an option for a younger version too, but I guess I can keep that till later.
Okay, well, I'm intrigued, but
Yeah. Why don't you go why
Want
why
me
don't
to
you go for it?
well, the younger
Good.
option just would have been River Phoenix because that
Oh,
would have been
oh, of course.
like
nice.
that he would have been, right after Stand By Me.
Yeah.
He would have been, like, entering puberty, so older than 9 years
Better
old,
better age. Yeah,
but, like,
better
he's, like,
age. Yeah.
older than 9 years old, but with the acting chops and he's coming of age sort of thing, so he would have, like, aged up with the trilogy. So by the time it ended in 1992, he would already be, like, the late teens or approaching 20, which would be still kinda young for Darth Vader, but I just feel like, even if they recast him in the sequel, like, River Phoenix would have been a solid, like, boy version of Anakin Skywalker, if you want to go that way, but I always thought of Anakin as sort of like a man, and therefore Val Kilmer was my top choice.
Those are great picks. Russ, who's on your list for Anakin?
Oh, this is interesting. So I'm glad you mentioned Val Kilmer. So I might mess this name up, but Adrian Pasdar. Um,
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so near.
Hell yeah.
So
They're
near
both in
dark.
Top Gun.
They're both in Top Gun. I was thinking more near dark, but I like the connection.
Yep, yep.
He
good
had
choice.
for me, he is the look where they could give him some little frosted tips, blonde it up a bit, and kind of give him like a happy go lucky younger kind of thing. and I think he could easily age into dark, like go back to normal, and he's kind of that dark horse, um, and I think would be a perfect Anakin Skywalker. But that being said, as we're talking about like an older version of Anakin, and I don't know, we're not going to talk about rewriting the prequels, but I always imagined he would still be kind of like a slick street kid. It would start on Coruscant, and he'd be racing, speeder bikes, swoop bikes, whatever you want to call them, in the alleys and making money and flying like freelance gigs, and just he's trying to make money to survive, that kind of thing. So I see him as a little bit edgier, and that's why I go with Adrian Pasdar as my choice. I feel like he can carry um, the darkness of the character because he is kind of born in the dark, and then
Mm.
eventually they'll find their way to tattooing, I
At
suppose. But
least near dark.
Yeah,
Ooh, ooh.
that was
oh,
that was on the platter for me. By the way, you don't have to make his hair blonde because he could be the dark-haired one, and his wife Padme could be the blonde one too. Like it doesn't have to be the father that's blonde.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
why
very
not?
true. But also, it's Hollywood. You can make anyone older, younger, blonder,
Yeah, whatever.
whatever.
I mean, like
Yeah.
my parents, me and my brother all have like different hair colors, so like it really doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
But that's
Mutants.
a great pick.
Hell
That's a
yeah.
great pick. I never would have thought of that, but that's a really good pick. I
Fry,
really
did I
like that a
steal your
lot.
pick?
Yes.
It,
but
it's actually it's funny
but
you mentioned that because I have another near dark pick for later on if we go into more characters, but
So
I'll
do
save
I.
oh, nice.
it.
So do I. We're
Now,
screwed.
yeah. Oh, that could be pretty much any of that cast. Yeah, that's why I
Okay,
was
Fred.
thinking of Adrian Pasdar too for specifically because of Near Dark, because he goes from
Nice.
like
Yeah.
easygoing cowboy to brooding vampire. But
Yes.
my other one was Clayton Roner. You know who that is from Just One of the Guys.
Oh
No.
He was
wow.
he's
Was
like
he the
part
was he the main guy or was he the bad? The bad guy's William Zabka, so he must be the
yeah
main dude. Yeah, the
yeah
main
the
guy.
one that like
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
oh, you're right. Yeah, that's a good pick.
Because he was like, I mean, he was technically part of the Brat Pack, but he was like the one that like never like really made a big splash. So I feel like he would be the one to hop into, or I feel like any of those other Brat Packers would be, it was like, it would Star Wars tech, even though it's a huge movie, it wouldn't be hip enough for them.
Yeah, that's a good Anakin choice as well. I totally see it.
And
Yeah.
then
But the
just for
fact,
fun, like if there was a young Anakin, I was thinking Barrett Oliver, which is the kid from Neverending Story.
Oh yeah. Never Any Story kid.
Oh,
he's a photographer now, a fine art
Ooh.
photographer. But yeah,
He's like
I could see
a
that.
super hip photographer now too. I think he
Yeah,
has like a big beard and he's like
yeah,
totally like edgy. He's like totally like edgy now, I think.
always was.
well,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, total badass for history.
well, I'm gonna have to step up my game because my pick was just Val Kilmer because I was going with the Willow connection.
Sure.
I think some of those are really great picks.
Well, you know what it says to me? The fact that Fry and I chose the same person means we're both right, and that's the answer.
There you
Yeah,
go.
Okay.
that's how it works, right?
Yeah, right.
Even
That's a
though
win.
even though it's
We
two
won.
versus two, yours is the more original idea, so therefore it has the edge.
Yes.
I mean, the interesting thing is that, like, I'm also trying to get in the head of Lucas and what he may have actually done.
Right.
And so, like, just knowing that he would eventually cast him for Willow,
Makes me think he
for
had an
me,
eye on him a little bit.
yeah, I mean, or that, like, in some alternate version of history, it just like seems like that was something that may have happened. We didn't mention from the original email chain, you had a really great idea for Anakin that I thought was a little bit of an unexpected choice, but 1980s Gary Oldman as
Oh yeah.
Anakin.
I still think that would be a fantastic choice because he wasn't famous then. He was just doing maybe Sid and Nancy like around that time.
Yeah.
And he would have been, I feel like it would have fit very well with Russ's vision of like a street urchin
Yeah.
hero. And I feel like Gary Oldman, as we all know, the guy can do everything. And if he wants to be scary, he can be scary, but he could also be
Yeah.
romantic. And he can also, he's a good looking guy in an unconventional sense where it's like, he just seems like the thing about someone like Val Kilmer is that he's a smoldering dude on a level like Brad Pitt. But if you look at like Mark Hamill, uh, there's something there specifically after the car accident too, and I feel like Gary Oldman's face, I'm sorry, is a face that can tell a story, but also can inhabit any role that he can, which is why he's Gary Oldman, So I feel like he's the type of guy that can sell any angle of Anakin that you want, and you know he would put forth the effort to make it deeper, so that when he does fall, I feel like you would really believe it coming from him.
No, totally. Yeah. It's interesting. One of the things that George Lucas always talks about in terms of what he was trying to do with the prequels was the mirror image or the inverse in a lot of ways of the original trilogy. It's like, similar character archetypes, similar situations, but then it goes one way instead of the way that it went in the original trilogy. And I think mirroring the journeys of Anakin and Luke, I think he may very well have gone for like that darker, more brooding version of Anakin.
Especially since Return of the Jedi would have came out, let's say, 3 years prior to this movie, so you can't have Mark Hamill Part 2. You need to have
Right,
something that's
exactly.
different from
Right,
Mark Hamill, to show
right.
that Luke is his own person, you know?
Yeah. But that's a good point. I think like the proximity to Return of the Jedi, you would really have to contrast.
Yeah, it can't just be like the same sort of person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think would be if there was going to be any changes there, it would be less mirror like imaging between like the original trilogy and prequel trilogy. Like there would be a concerted effort to make things feel different.
See, but that's what I'm saying though. See, when I say the mirroring, like I'm saying the darker, brooding version
Right.
of Luke.
The
Yeah.
the inverse of Luke.
Yeah. But okay, let's move on from Anakin Skywalker. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Fry.
I'm gonna
Fry.
go with one of my like more wild ones, Hugh Grant.
Whoa. Good pick.
Ooh.
Because have you ever seen like Lair of the White Worm? Like
Yeah.
think of this isn't. I'm not thinking of like 90s Hugh Grant. There's like 80s Hugh Grant. He was like actually kind of smoother and cooler.
He's
And
very,
like
very
look,
suave in that film. Yeah.
yeah.
That's a good pick. That's a really good pick.
That is a
Damn.
good one.
And for
That's
some
a
reason, he
really
didn't start stuttering until like the 90s.
Yeah, same.
Obi-Wan, when he's like,
Um,
Obi-Wan, but I haven't, but that's before the Dark Times.
Yeah, that's a really good pick, actually.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
You're hired.
Russ.
You're Hugh Grant.
Oh,
Both.
Fry, you're hired. Well, go back in time. You're hired back in time. So we can never disprove if it were. My choice for Obi-Wan, James Spader.
Ooh,
Oh, nice.
interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
He could probably do
pick.
the accent.
Yeah.
I think he certainly could, and I mean, the feathered hair, like I think it would have worked really well for Obi-Wan, and we know he has the acting gravitas. Yeah, he's definitely always on my short list for most plug-in an actor for a movie that didn't exist is James Spader. So
You're like broadening my horizons here. I don't know where you guys were thinking. I wasn't near where you guys are at.
I'm in Fry's box and he's outside. I don't know.
Okay, Johnny.
I think I know what you're gonna say, and it's what I think you guys were talking about in the email thread from a while ago. So I'll kind of go with one of my original thoughts on that role, which I think no one else thought of, which was John Hurt.
Ooh.
Because I think
Ooh.
John Hurt still channels the wise experience of a Jedi master, whereas the other guys you're talking about are very brilliant, but I think they're very much like a swashbuckler, which I think would kind of go with the Ewan McGregor vibe of like the actual
Mm,
new prequel trilogy that we got. But that's also with the lens of what you're talking about, Josh, of like maybe different priorities. I think maybe in 1986, Alec Guinness is kind of fresh in people's minds, and
true.
he did seem very well. He was white haired and everything like that. So if you're going to go back like 20 years, you figure he would be like middle age, you know. And I feel like if you're going to go with middle age and wisdom, and also have like a gruff experience that people uh, uh, not question with authority, and also a bit of a panache. Like John
Mm,
Hurt has got a bit of a wise ass streak in him, which is really good. So he could
mm.
do really serious, and he could also crack a joke that would like break a roof. And I feel like he just is someone that you would trust, and that would be John Hurt.
That's a good pick. That's a really good pick. And I
Yeah, I
see
like
it
that one.
like sort of around the eyes. Like I could see him
Mhm.
sort of being a younger Alec Guinness. That's a really good
Yeah,
pick.
yeah, because I was thinking Alec Guinness as the endpoint, and I feel like John Hurt it really goes in that direction.
Again, my pick is super boring, but I always liked the idea of Jeremy Irons.
Super
I think,
I
solid.
like that one. Yeah.
Yeah, super solid choice.
though, one that I was thinking of today was Liam Neeson.
Yeah, he would be. I feel like he's a bit. It's funny
He's a bit
because
tall.
he's
He's
a
a bit
bit
tall.
tall, and this is something that I know you're gonna make another podcast about maybe like if you were to rewrite the sequels entirely.
I don't think I'm gonna do that.
Do you guys think you're gonna do that? Okay.
I don't think
Well,
so.
spoiler alert if you do, there's one idea that you came up with many years ago,
Me?
Josh. Yeah, that was brilliant, which was the idea if you make the prequels that Darth Vader should be a separate character.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so then I thought if you were to do that, Liam Neeson would make a good Darth Vader if it were 1986.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
Or
interesting.
if you were to put Qui-Gon Jinn in this movie, just make him Liam Neeson again. Why not? Fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Well, let's move on to Padme Amidala. Russ.
So sticking with my near dark, Jenny Wright would be my
Just the whole cast. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm just gonna take all of the great casting choices from near dark and apply them
Slash
to
aliens.
yeah. I mean, also my backup was Sean Young. I
Interesting.
also thought Jennifer
Interesting.
Connelly, but she's a little bit too young. She wouldn't be the right age to be a love interest by the time by like the second film. I think once upon a time in America, she was what between like 12 and 14. She was way too young. And that was 80. Whoa.
The 83, I believe, was Once Upon a Time in America. But she would be the right age if it were River
84.
Phoenix.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a possibility. But yeah, I think Jenny Wright works for me, and we know the on-screen chemistry with Adrian Pasdar, my choice for Anakin, works. So, and then being older, I mean, those romantic little like inclinations, those little moments can start earlier in our revisionist what if prequel film. So I feel like she'd be a great choice. I think she's got a great look for it. Yeah, and Sean Young would have been maybe a touch older at the time, I think. So she'd be my other choice.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
she'd just done Dune in '86. Is that am I right on the?
80, that came out in
No.
84, I think.
Yeah.
So
So she'd be coming off of Dune, so she would
Yeah.
kind of be in like kind of the public eye. So yeah, so
And the
this is
space opera.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
Yeah,
good.
why-
I was funny. Earlier in the day, I was thinking about Sean Young as a possibility for that too, which is kind of funny.
my last throwaway was Alyssa Milano as a choice.
That's really
Well, how
young.
old was?
But
Yeah.
Oh,
That's,
yeah.
how old was she in Who's the Boss?
She's like 12 or 13 when like.
She was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be like 2
Okay.
years into who's well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was just kind of her. She and Jennifer Connelly, I think, were too young to play the role. So I
Mhm.
think I'd go Jenny Wright more so even than Sean Young. Yeah,
I like it. Fry, who's your Padme Amidala?
I kind of wanted to put Joan Chen in there for some reason because like it just
Ooh.
just be
Okay.
I think it's just because in Last Emperor she kind of looks a lot like full Queen of Amidala attire. I think I just associated the image.
Interesting. I
You
like
know-
it.
Do you know Haviland Morris? She's
No.
from 16 Candles. She's like the popular girl that Anthony
Haviland.
Michael Hall takes around, and she's also in Gremlins 2 as Marla
Oh
Bloodstone.
yes.
Oh, I'd see
So-
her.
Oh,
yeah.
I like
Interesting.
that.
And just the range of those two roles, I feel like she should have been in more things around that time period.
She kind of has like a Heather Locklear look a little bit.
Yes, but
Yeah.
and also but she looks very different in Gremlins 2. I just think that
Mm.
she's got a lot of range, and it would be interesting to put somebody in that role that can kind of move as much as whoever is in the Anakin role from one mode to the other.
I like it. That's a really interesting pick. I like both of those picks. John.
I've
Padme.
had a few, but usually the one that's on the top of my list is probably Diane Lane because I
Yeah.
think
Oh, nice.
she kind of like the Val Kilmer thing. I think she's like the whole package. Like she could kind of do whatever it is that you need to have, and she also has that fire in her that I think could go a long way in like an adventure and be passed down to Leia and stuff like that. But she also seems a bit regal, and she also did some like really interesting work back in that time. I mean, Sheets of Fire and The Outsiders and all that. And
Yeah,
I
The
just feel
Outsider's
like
what I was thinking of.
I feel like I say integrity a lot, but I feel like she would have brought some level of integrity to it. I've had some other choices too, like if you want to go in different avenues, like if you want to go a little bit younger, Mia Sarah might have been a good choice.
That was a backup for me. I feel like that one could have happened. Like if they
Yeah.
did that.
Because that would have been like right off of Legend, doing this instead of Ferris Bueller, maybe. And
No.
if you want to go the Willow angle, you could just take what's her name, Joanne Whaley,
Yeah.
who played
she was on my
Mardigan's
list.
love interest. Like she could have been Padme too. There's a lot of choices. Ali Sheedy, maybe if she like want to be a little bit more serious and fun, she could have probably done it. Like, there's a lot I feel to go with, but I think Diane Lane was probably the one that was just like all encompassing. Like she kind of like checks every box of like wherever you
Yeah,
want to take it, she can take it that way.
I agree. Though I like a lot of the names that you just dropped.
Ali Sheedy was
Um,
busy with a short circuit, so she's working with droids, but she's a
Oh
little
yeah,
yeah.
she's already.
and
She said, "I hit my robot quota. Fuck it."
my pick, I was also thinking Diane Lane from our original thread, but then I
Mm,
was also thinking Leah Thompson.
she would have been good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming right
So
off of Back to the
Could
Future.
have saved
yeah.
it from Howard the Duck.
Oh,
Ooh,
yes, right, yeah. So again, like sort of implicit in this, if George Lucas is making more Star Wars movies in the '80s, then he's not making Willow, he's not making Howard the Duck. Though I mean, maybe
right.
he is. I don't know. So my line of thinking is that some of the casting decisions that were made in those movies and production decisions that were made in those movies would have ended up in then new hypothetical Star Wars movies. That's a
Hmm.
complicated sentence, but I think you get what I mean. Okay, let's do Qui-Gon Jinn, assuming he's a character in this version. Russ, you smile pretty big. What's your pick?
Yeah. So these I just came up with yesterday. The Jeremy Irons shifting up to Qui-Gon Jinn, I'll just throw it out there real quick to get out of the
Sure,
way.
yeah,
Because
that's good.
I had, I chose my James Spader for Obi-Wan, so I shifted Jeremy Irons up. But my new choice, I think they both work. Edward James Olmos as Qui-Gon Jinn.
Ooh,
Mm.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and my
Okay.
other choice, coming right off Road Warrior, but Mel Gibson as Qui-Gon Jinn.
Oh, interesting
Mm.
pick.
Yeah.
Interesting
Yeah.
pick. How old was he then?
He had that white streak in his hair in Road Warrior. It aged him up like 10, 15 years. It was great. Like he
They
could do it.
aged they also aged up Liam Neeson for the movie. They put gray in his hair when he was like only like 40 something years old when he did it. He was like
Yeah.
45, 40, whatever.
He was going on 50. He was close to 50. I think he
Yeah,
was in like his like late
but he was
40s.
supposed to be someone in like in his 60s. So they put
Yeah.
more gray in his hair than he actually had.
Well, that's a
Pretty
good
surprised
point.
60.
Yeah, he was a very spry 60.
Metachlorians
Keeps you
keep you
young.
young, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Mhm.
That's a good pick.
For full transparency, I don't really have a pick for Qui-Gon Jinn because I
Okay.
just feel like I was like, that's a character that's kind of superfluous to Star Wars. I love Qui-Gon Jinn. I
Who's
love
to
Liam
say?
Neeson, but
Yeah.
like it's one of those things where it's like I don't know how much of the story would have had Qui-Gon Jinn immediately after the trilogy. Maybe I would have, and if it did,
Yeah.
he's an actor. He's a character that like so many people I feel like can play.
Well, maybe you change your mind if it was played by Rucker Hauer.
Ooh.
Ooh. That is a great
Yeah.
that is good
He was
casting.
actually the top of choice for me to play Darth Vader if Darth Vader was a separate character.
Oh,
But
cool.
Qui-Gon
Fry,
Yeah.
Jinn, Qui-Gon Jinn,
tit,
Rutger Hauer is fantastic casting. I give that to you. That's amazing.
tit for tat,
That's
Fry. You got one of mine. I got one of yours. Uh,
was he on your list for Qui-Gon, Russ?
not for Qui-Gon.
Oh,
Uh,
then it's still good.
yeah.
It's still good.
Yeah.
Padme.
It could be a
He
dual
has,
role.
he has range. He has range. Looks good in bike shorts. It's fine.
Mhm.
I have a few for Qui-Gon actually. I was thinking Christopher Lee.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
nice. Yeah.
you would have been young enough to like get away with it back then. Yeah, absolutely.
And then that also led me to the thought, I've read some people saying Count Dooku in episode 2, wouldn't it have been cool and more resonant if that had been Qui-Gon?
Interesting.
Either that or Qui-Gon should have been Dooku in episode 1. Because if you're setting up that character to be a fallen Jedi, to actually have it mean something by seeing him as a Jedi in the first movie, it would be interesting, like if you have the villain of episode 2 either a fallen Qui-Gon or a Dooku that we see as a Jedi in episode 1. It's sort of like a cautionary tale of what can happen when a Jedi falls to the dark side. So we as the audience and the in-universe Anakin would see that that's a possibility. Like we would
Mm.
see that happens.
Well, that's very cool, and it reminds me of my choice for Darth Maul because I wrote down two different actors, and for very two distinct reasons. And one was like, if they do the Ray Park thing, where they have like an acrobat in there and they dub over his lines, and he only has like two sentences of dialogue. I was going to say Donnie Yen, because
Oh.
he was like that's like peak Hong Kong like kung fu cinema, and I think he was like in his 20s back in the 80s, and he totally could have done that. But then if you want to actually have like a real scary villain uh, with dialogue and more of a presence in that sense. And if you were to kind of go with like more of a 80s choreography of fight scenes, I was going to say Lance Henriksen as Darth Maul.
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I
Interesting
feel
choice.
like, and he's a character that he could even maybe survive into more movies or whatever. But I feel like he's the type of guy that's like, we're going back with the near dark thing and everything. Like he looks imposing, he sounds imposing, and he can give you that stare that says like, I'm gonna bite your head off. But like he's a bit like menacing in the sense where you feel like this guy has done things that are that are inhumane to other people, and he might have skills that you don't know about to back that up, you know.
I'm
So
just picturing Lance Henriksen with like intense makeup on his face too, like the
yeah,
Darth Maul makeup.
exactly,
That'd be
with
insane.
that voice, and this be like
And those
what.
eyes too.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
has very intense eyes.
he does, and the shape of his head and all of it, it's like it's all like he could totally do that.
My one other real quick Qui-Gon choice. Now bear with me here. And this is presupposing that Qui-Gon, he's only in episode 1. But Sean Connery, he's in Last Crusade, right? So there's the Lucasfilm connection. But this started me on a whole thought process where I was remembering in the Milius documentary that's on Netflix, Mace Neufeld, the producer of The Hunt for Red October, he shares an anecdote in that movie about casting Sean Connery, and Connery was like, I need some good monologues in this script. If you want me in the movie, we need to get a writer to write me some good monologues. And Mace Neufeld, the producer, happened to have an office next door to John Milius. So Mace Neufeld suggests to Sean Connery on the phone, how about John Milius, who very famously wrote the I love the smell of napalm in the morning. He wrote the USS Indianapolis speech for Quint and Jaws. So Sean Connery is like, Milius would be great. Do you think he would do it? And Mace Neufeld, he goes, yeah, let me see. Hold on. And then so he walks into John Milius's office, and obviously the rest is history. So that's where we get stuff like, our old adversaries, the Americans, once they trembled at the sound of our rockets. Now they will tremble again at the sound of our silence. So I had this whole thing. I was like, Sean Connery as Qui-Gon, he would say something like, our old adversary, the Sith, have returned. Once they trembled at the crackle of our lightsabers. Now we must face them again. And I just thought that'd be really funny. So that's my pick for Qui-Gon, Sean Connery.
The only thing I would say about that though is that he would have been coming right off of Highlander, which is like a similar
Oh,
role.
yeah.
And I'm not sure Sean Connery's stature and ego would want to do that again, but he probably, maybe, you never know.
I mean, if the money's right.
I was thinking too, if you want to play fun and loose, Scott Glenn might have been a good Qui-Gon Jinn.
Interesting.
And just the grizzled demeanor, and he very much channels like Eastern philosophy. He was in a
Yeah.
movie called Yakuza, but Scott Glenn was in this other Yakuza movie from like the 70s. It was kind of cheesy. But either way, I'm on a tangent now. But I just feel
Yeah.
like I feel like he's very believable as like a spiritual warrior if you want to have him in like a movie and dispose of him in one movie. And possibly even make him turn bad too as a bad guy.
He's got the right stuff. Yeah.
There
Scott
you go.
Glenn.
There you go.
Oh, man. Let's do Darth Maul. I actually didn't have a pick for Darth Maul.
Well, I already blew my load because I already said both of my picks.
I
That's
got
the other one?
one. Oh yeah. Crispin Glover.
Ooh.
Nice.
All right.
I don't think anybody like they wouldn't even have that fight because nobody wanted to go near him. Like,
Well,
No explanation. Just Crispin Glover. No
And-
explanation needed.
and the thing is, like, they could kill him off in the same movie too, so that like if for some reason they clash with Crispin Glover's style, it's like, well,
Yeah.
he's dead, so they could
They
just
don't have to
move on.
they don't have
But-
to recast him and put prosthetics on the actor's face.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
He won
And
that
like him
lawsuit.
floating upside down.
He did, yeah, as he
Yeah.
should. You can't use
Yeah.
someone's likeliness without paying them, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that definitely would have been like the oddest Darth Maul, and possibly the scariest too, depending on how well he does it.
Well, you have to wonder what the makeup would have been like in these films because there'll be a character that we can bring up who was CG.
We are going to next.
Okay,
Mhm.
so yeah, so they're going to be. So how was the makeup? It's going to be prosthetics. It's going to be latex appliances. It's going to be like Star Wars makeup and masks. So it's very interesting.
Right.
You can put the actual actor on the set this time and not have them be CGI rotoscope replaced.
Now that I think about it, Willem Dafoe possibly could have been a really good Darth Maul.
Ooh,
'Cause he
Oh,
would have.
yeah.
Well, The
He
thing
was
is,
at platoon age, and he could do anything.
well, the thing with this role though, like presumably this character wouldn't have as many lines
Well, that's the
because
thing. It's like yet again, like I guess if you want to play it really close to the Phantom Menace, then you're absolutely correct. Like they could have gotten maybe Jackie Chan to play Darth Maul then, or something like that.
Yeah, I would say like Jean-Claude Van Damme, or like one of the action stars
Mm.
of the period who had a lot of
Yeah.
Oh, good
flexibility
call.
and could do splits with lightsabers. There's a
Like
lot.
Benny the Jet Arquitas could have played like Darth Maul or something like that. Put him in makeup.
Van Damme
I
was
like
on my list,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I was thinking this actor named Peter Kwong, who plays the villainous henchman Rain in Big Trouble in Little China, because he's a martial
yeah.
artist, so he just has
Oh.
resident.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or Michelle Yeoh.
That would have been
Uh,
cool.
Interesting. I like it.
Because
see
then
that.
I was kind of thinking of like it wouldn't even like just necessarily even like a female version. It would just be kind of like a genderless Darth Maul.
Mhm.
Like they could kind of like how the original Pinhead in Hellraiser is in the original
Weird.
book.
Oh, yeah.
What's the name of that actor that Kevin Costner throws off the roof in The Untouchables? that one
Oh,
gangster.
he's great.
Yeah, that guy. He's like, I said your
Yeah.
friend squealed like a stuffed pig or something like that. It's like that guy
Oh,
could have been a good
good.
Darth Maul too.
Yeah.
That's a good choice.
That is a good
Yeah.
choice. Okay. How about Jar Jar Binks, who I'm presuming would have been in like the Howard the Duck suit. Or was that a puppet?
Howard the Duck? That was a person in a suit, I think.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
probably a mix
Yeah.
at times, but yeah, mostly person in the
Mhm.
suit.
You know, it's funny because like I don't. It's one of those things where it's like yet again, like if I'm trying to think of like in my own head, like when I say like Lance Henriksen should be Darth Maul, I'm picturing a person with lots of pathos, and
Yeah.
like so I'm kind of going to the core of the character as compared to like we'll give him 3 lines, he'll do a couple backflips. Like I'm not thinking like that. So if I think about like the character of Jar Jar Binks, I'm not thinking of like a minstrel sort of thing. I'm thinking of like a really weird alien that no one can quite understand, that could be funny, but is also just kind of like just something bizarre, you know? So I was thinking like Tom Noonan, in like a really
Oh.
weird alien outfit.
Ooh, that's a good
Like,
choice.
and then he could be like this really bizarre fucking alien. Maybe he'll be weirder instead of funnier, but like he's a good actor and he could probably do that.
He could just look like he looks like a manhunter, like with the
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, exactly. But not have like that Misa Jar Jar Binks aspect of him, but like
Right.
just kind of like a weird fucking space presence that people don't quite know
That's
what to do
awesome.
with when he's around them.
I
You
like
know?
really love that one.
I'm going Paul Rubens. I'm going Pee Wee, baby.
Ooh.
Oh, nice.
Oh, you're a rebel, Josh. That's a good choice. Prime Herman.
That is peak Pee Wee Herman.
That's
That would be
good.
Flight the
He's the-
Navigator, Pee Wee.
Yeah, he was the little
Yeah.
robot voice.
Oh, yeah. So, and then he's also, I'm just realizing he was also the voice of Rex in Star Tours.
Oh yeah.
Oh, right, yes.
Oh.
So it even sort of works with the Lucasfilm connection, which I totally wasn't
Yeah.
thinking.
You know,
Oh.
if you go funny Jar Jar Binks, I guess Howie Mandel could probably do it too. I mean, he was in Little
That's-
Monsters.
well,
Oh,
he did the voice of
that's-
Gizmo.
Yeah.
He does.
That's
He could
good.
do it. He's
Oh,
got
I
the
like
voice.
when it was just Maurice.
Oh yeah, okay, from Little Monsters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have a parallel choice to Howie Mandel. I say Bobcat Goldthwait. It's my choice for Jar Jar Binks.
That's actually that's great. Actually,
doing his Bobcat
Yeah.
voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's not-
That might be the best choice out of all of them, actually.
yeah, no, that is perfect. So instead of Police Academy 2,
He just does this.
he does Star Wars Episode 1 instead.
Why is everybody in the spaceship? Ah!
That is a great pick. That is awesome. That is awesome. Does anyone else have any more Jar Jars?
I think you can't top Bobcat Goldthwait.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Oh, I was really proud of my Paul Rubens one, but I think we're unanimous. It's Bobcat Goldthwait for Jar Jar. That's amazing.
I mean, I just watched Hot to Trot recently, so it was like fresh in my mind. Hot to Trot is a real gem. Oof.
So unless anyone has some other characters that they have
I got a few.
picks for. Okay, Fry, then Russ.
Boss Nass. I don't know why. I just wanted to see either Emmett Walsh or Dan Hedaya or Brett. Really?
Did you take
I
both
have-
of Russ's
Are you
picks?
I have
serious?
them both for Watto. I have them both for Watto. Emma Walsh
I'm
and
a different
Dana.
person for Watto.
Were you watching Blood Simple? So we're doing Near Dark and Blood Simple here together. It's
No,
That's
yeah, they're both from.
You know,
That would have
you
been.
know,
that's
uh,
amazing.
you know
That's
how I wanted,
amazing.
yeah, probably.
you know how I wanted to show up in the Star Wars prequel. There's always these two actors that have very similar names. I want to make sure, yes, the correct order of name. Keith David. I always thought he should have shown
Oh,
up in
Keith
some
David.
sort of.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
was actually.
Could-
Oh,
could
that was
just-
one of my Mace Windows.
Yeah,
Oh,
because I was gonna say there's Keith David and there's David Keith, and I'm always like, which one is?
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
Oh, yes,
You
yes,
have
yes.
to
Right.
think about it
Yeah.
for 5 seconds every time.
Exactly. So, but Keith David, I think he could pick a role, and he could play any sort of like ancillary sort of like figure of authority with gravitas, you know.
For sure.
My pick for Boss Nass, I think Brian Blessed in 1986 would have
Sure,
still
the same
been.
dude.
Right. But I was
Um,
picturing just Dan Day and like just like a half-assed, like kind of aquatic like makeup. Like
Oh, you know what? Marlon Brando.
yeah.
One day on set with cue cards in weird fat alien makeup with like a bucket on his head. He's like, I am Boss Nass. And then just like, like that would
I
be
am-
like a fucking
he
plan.
would have called Francis Ford Coppola to direct that scene because he's the only one he'd listen to. So George would have to call up his buddy Francis, be like, hey, Francis, you got to come direct him. He won't listen to me. He won't listen.
Russ, do you have any other Wattos?
So wait, so that was your Watto, right? My Emmett Walsh and Dan Hedaya were my
No, that-
Wattos. I wasn't
Yeah,
I
that
wasn't
was your
doing Boss Nass. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't do a
'Cause
Boss
I-
Nass. So, yeah.
I do have a Watto Buck Flower, which is that the guy that plays a bum in like Back to the Future and plays a bum in like every movie.
Oh, that guy.
oh,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
I feel like he never has a scene that's like more than like 3 lines. So I'd be a slightly
I
bigger
like it.
role for him.
Watto. That's a character I didn't even think about. I don't know why, but immediately I'm like Dennis Hopper. I was just like,
Oh, yeah, I can see
you
that.
can't take the kid, man. He's my livelihood. I don't know.
That's great.
Or Harry Dean Stanton.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A little more reserved of a Watto, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like his
Yeah.
character from Twin Peaks.
Oh, there's a Bib Fortuna cameo, and I would say that could have been Rick Mayall because in
Wow.
Return of the Jedi he was played by, I think his name's Michael Carter, who is like he's an
Yeah.
American werewolf in London, and so is Rick Mayall. So I just imagined them being friends, and like that Michael Carter couldn't do it, so Rick Mayall steps in, and also Frey is an American werewolf in London, so
Yeah,
oh, I
that's-
didn't know that.
could get in there.
He plays a
Um,
doctor, right, or something.
Yeah,
So Russ, who else you got?
We should do Mace Windu, like officially. So
Mm.
Rucker Hauer was
Alright.
one of my Mace Windu choices, and Lou Gossett Jr. was my other.
Ooh,
Nice.
nice.
Well, Louis Gossett Jr. is like, yeah, he
Like-
fits the
With mustache.
yeah.
yeah.
He definitely has
mustache,
the
yeah.
he definitely has the authority of Samuel Jackson, and he also has the "don't fuck with me" vibe of Samuel Jackson.
And
You
I think he was coming off an officer and a gentleman at the time, so he would be
Yes,
in
yes,
that
yes.
Yeah.
space. So it's
That's
like
exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
oh, and actually, Deborah Winger could have been a Padme potentially.
If you want to age up I'd say Val Kilmer as if he's the character, Anakin to like late 20s, sort of a character, then Deborah Winger would have been right in there. Absolutely.
I think the older you make Anakin, the better the story is because he's way too old to be a Jedi. Because like we didn't know Jedi started out as like like pre-K. So,
Yeah, well, so the other thing about that is that when we see him unmasked in Return of the Jedi, he looks like an old dude.
Because
Yeah.
he
And-
is.
yeah.
Right.
The actor,
yeah.
the
So-
actor was Sebastian Shaw. He was like
Yeah.
70 something years old.
Yes,
when
he was
he's
very
like older
old.
than Alec Guinness. Like,
Yeah.
so
I mean, if you look at the original trilogy, it's very clear that Alec Guinness Obi-Wan is supposed to be much older than the character we leave in Revenge of the Sith.
same thing with Anakin Skywalker.
Same thing with
Because-
Anakin. Yeah.
Because when you find out his actual age, it's like, oh,
He's like 43 in Return of the Jedi
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
and I think like Obi-Wan Kenobi's like what is he like 58 or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that? It's
Yeah.
like, it's like no. It's like that guy is not 58 years old, you know. I think he turned did he turn how old was he on set? Did he turn 70 on set or was he like 60 something on set?
No,
Like,
no, he was 57.
was he 57?
Yeah.
Alec
Wait.
Guinness?
Alec Guinness was?
I
Alright.
don't know about that. I'm looking that up.
Pretty sure.
Oh, come on, malarkey. Yeah, he was born in 1914. So he was 62 when they shot it. So,
It's
okay, so
pretty
he was in
young.
the 60s, you know, like it's appropriate for the way he is presented in the movie.
I don't know, man. It's that extra sun on Tatooine really ages you twice as fast, I guess.
Mhm.
I have another Mace Windu, Michael
Ooh.
Dorn, because he was
Ooh,
in,
Oh, yeah.
good.
but he was in a Richard Marquand movie, Jagged Edge, like right
Mhm.
in like '85. So like
Interesting.
he could have just been recommended for it.
It, okay, interesting. Speaking of directors, are we ready to do our director picks?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Russ, who's your pick of director, speaking of Richard Marquand?
Catherine Bigelow.
Good. She's one of my
Oh,
picks too. She was
good
she was one of
choice.
my picks.
I'm sticking on Near Dark, and I feel like I mean, timing wise, like Near Dark would have had to come out first in this imaginary thought, because that would be the showcase that she would be perfect for this
Yeah,
type of
yeah,
movie.
right.
Before that, it was that film with Willem Dafoe.
The Loveless.
Yeah, The Loveless. So, but I mean, I think that she would be a great choice, and also like, I mean, like the depth of characters in Near Dark, it just like that the movie goes deep, it gets emotional, like it's really, I feel like she's the right person to both mix action and real, like, character exploration.
I like it.
It's funny you mention it because I think Near Dark came out in like 1987, which would have been after
Yeah,
this. And
yeah.
my pick for the first movie would have been James Cameron because he would have been coming right off of the Terminator, and
Mm.
he's
Good pick.
obsessed with Star Wars, and
Yeah.
that's what got him into movie making.
Yeah,
And instead of jumping on a sequel that was Aliens, he probably
jump on a
would have
sequel of
jumped on a
Star Wars.
sequel that was Star Wars.
Oh,
And
good point.
then I think for the third movie, which would have been in 1992, Catherine Bigelow would have been my choice for that one
Interesting.
because
And he might have
she would
recommended
have
her.
exactly, he would have recommended her.
Yeah.
She would have done
Mhm.
Near Dark. She would have done
Near
Point
Dark.
Break. And
Mm.
then
Yes.
Right.
at that point, I mean, Hollywood is terrible when it comes to gender politics, but she would have
Yeah. So,
proven
but at that
herself as
point,
someone that could do
right.
an action movie. James Cameron
Yeah.
already proved he can do an action movie and special effects, but I feel like by 1992 they would have trusted her to do Star Wars probably.
My only thing with James Cameron is that I feel like they really would have butted heads, him and George Lucas.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like, George would have had to, like, implicitly trusted James Cameron to do it.
Well, so this is getting back at another thing that we would have to assume. So because I think in the real world, the reason why George Lucas waited so long to direct another Star Wars movie is because he was exhausted and he wanted to focus on his family and concentrate on his kids and his company. So if you still work with that, sort of mindset, the reason to keep making Star Wars movies is because that's what keeps his company going.
Mm.
That's what keeps paying for payroll, right? So if he's sort of doing these movies out of a sense of the obligation to do all the work he wants to do in terms of the R&D for filmmaking technology and pushing the boundaries of effects technology and stuff, hypothetically, he may have been willing to kind of be even more hands off than he was on Jedi because he recognized that he can't really do that, right? So in that sense, maybe it would have made more sense to go with someone who had shown they could do it, who maybe he was still early enough in his career and still like young enough to still be kind of in awe a little bit of Lucas.
100%. I was gonna say, you already have the fact that he was asking people like David Lynch and I believe David Cronenberg if they wanted to do Jedi. They at least Lynch turned him down. Maybe Cronenberg was never really in the mix, but I heard.
Yeah, I don't
But
know. I don't know if I've
Ooh,
heard
the
of Cronenberg,
Davids.
but at
yeah,
least just with the notion of him asking David Lynch is enough to him be like, I'm trusting this artist who really wants to do
yeah,
their own thing. Now, to your point too, I completely agree that James Cameron is coming off the Terminator, and he, I think, would have been hungry to tackle a movie like Star Wars,
to
and
prove he could to prove himself.
to prove he can do what he wants. I don't think post Titanic James Cameron would have done it, but I think like or post Terminator 2 James Cameron, but I think like right after Terminator 1, I think he would have been like, yes, give me all the budget and I will
Yeah,
show you what James Cameron can do. Speaking in the
yeah,
third person, and then like and I feel like
and also
and it would have been like a proving ground for him, and it might have been just as much of a nightmare as it was for him to make Aliens because
what I'm
Aliens
thinking.
was his trial by fire, and it was a
Which
fucking nightmare for him. But he made it.
which
You know
which they also shot in the UK.
exactly. So he
So
would
Yeah.
have. It would have been a similar experience, but Star Wars
Connections.
instead. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. All right. I think I'm sold. On Cameron.
Fry.
Like you mentioned before, the David Lynch thing is part of what makes me think this could potentially be possible. John Carpenter, because
Oh,
Interesting.
Yeah,
because it's the only like sliver of time when that might have happened, because that's when John Carpenter was working, like started to do like big Hollywood movies, and he hated that experience so much that after Big Trouble in Little China, which was '86, is when he went back to
Yeah.
doing. But so I imagine this as I hate to sacrifice Big Trouble in Little China, but this would be in place of that, and like this would be
Oh,
the final
Yeah, man. And this is
final
it.
big movie
This
that
is
he.
after The Thing and after Escape from New York. Like, yeah, that's really interesting.
No,
Yeah,
that's
Fry
a really good
rewrites
pick.
history with a heavy pen. I don't know.
That's amazing. I'm gonna steal that. That's great. Okay, my picks are comparatively boring. My I was
Steven
going back and
Spielberg?
forth. No.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that maybe ever would have happened. Like,
No, they would have done it by now if that was ever a thing.
yeah.
It was known.
My pick is actually John Cordy, who directed the first Ewoks TV movie.
Oh, okay, because
Who
he would have
is-
been priming him, I guess.
So we discussed this way back on the newsletter episode, but John Cordy, who then I mistakenly said I thought was possibly one of Lucas's roommates at USC. He was actually much more than that. He was a local San Francisco independent filmmaker who was the direct inspiration for Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas to found American Zoetrope, because he
No
basically had an entire film studio and post facilities on like at a farm and a barn, and he had all his own equipment, and he was basically like a one-man studio shooting these really interesting independent films, some of which are cult classics in like cinephile circles.
Mm.
And so it seems like what happened when he made the Ewoks movie was I mean, I don't know if like he was helping out a friend because he needed money, or like he just wanted someone that he knew he could trust, who he could kind of leave alone. But he went to John Cordy for the Ewoks movie, which came out in '85. So it stands to reason he may have gone to him for episode 1, like a safe pair of hands that he knew he could trust. And yeah, so that's my pick for episode 1 is John Cordy.
That's not boring. That's a really nobody would have ever said that. Like, that's why that I don't think it's boring at all. I think it's actually rather insightful.
Oh, thanks. My other possibility I thought was maybe Willard Hike and Gloria Katz, who wrote the script for American Graffiti and did the final polish on the original Star Wars, who again were close friends who directed Howard the Duck for George Lucas.
That's funny.
Though I think John Cordy is a little more interesting, but who knows? Okay.
You know who popped into my head? I was thinking how someone like Ridley Scott probably wouldn't have done it, but I think maybe Tony Scott might have.
I was thinking that
done
too.
one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking Tony Scott.
You know.
Scott for maybe episode 1 or episode 2.
Yeah,
like
especially if he's doing like Top Gun budget stuff and he already has
Yeah.
the style with like the hunger and stuff like that. I think
Yeah.
he probably would have done something cool.
Yeah,
Do we have any thoughts about what the special effects breakthrough sequence may have been for episode 1? Like, I keep thinking of young Sherlock Holmes, the stained glass knight, and that's kind of similar to like a droid. So, obviously they wouldn't have the computing power to make all of the droids in a droid army through computer graphics, but like maybe if there was like one control droid or something, the other ones would be in suits, like the rank and file battle droids would be in suits, and then like the main one that would be the one you would face at the end of the computer game or something, like maybe that would have been rendered in CG.
Like the a Death Trooper Grievous sort of character, like
Yeah,
boss
yeah.
fight of sorts. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, or maybe they
Um,
would have saved that for Grievous in episode 3. I don't know.
Well, by that point it's 1992, so you're post Terminator 2. You're
Yeah,
prepping
right,
for
right, so
Jurassic
my-
Park. They would have done all sorts of CG for the
Yeah,
third one.
yeah. So my thinking for episode 3, the like special effects breakthrough would be the first naturalistic CG creature.
Right.
That's sort of what I was thinking.
It's funny you mentioned the stained glass thing because full disclosure, you know this. I think I sent you an email about this many years ago. But as a thought exercise, out of boredom, I wrote like an outline to when we were originally talking about this, like what this movie could have been.
Mhm.
And and I always thought that something that they never go over in a Star Wars movie is the creation of a lightsaber. I know there's a deleted scene in Return of the Jedi, but it's kind of like this throwaway thing that they clearly, literally threw away. It's not in the movie. So I feel like if you're gonna be making the first Star Wars movie with Anakin Skywalker becoming a Jedi Knight, and he has a lightsaber that he ends up handing over, well, that Obi-Wan hands over to Luke. Like maybe there should be a moment where
See
he's
how
in
you
the
make it.
process of how he makes it. So in order to make it, as we know, there are these crystals. So I thought it would be cool if he was in like a crystal sort of planet and he goes on the vision quest to find his crystal to make his lightsaber. That being said, that might be
Uh,
a good sequence in the movie to have that CG crystallized
Crystal
sort of like
creatures,
crystal
crystal creatures
creature
like the
or
dogs
something.
in The Last Jedi, except like,
Yeah. Or even just like a vision that he has. Well, like let's get into some weird Excalibur shit where like,
yeah,
like when they go to find like the Holy Grail, like that's like some sort of like scene where he's like trying to get the crystal and like it's some like crazy CG thing that he has to overcome with either his spirit or I don't know. I'm just making this up.
no,
And then
that's really
like
cool.
but it's a good excuse to have like a CG like, use your imagination at that point, you know?
Yeah,
And really lean into the fantasy aspect of Star Wars with just, like, one scene.
I'd buy that for $1.
yeah. Paul Verhoeven for episode 1, maybe.
Uh-huh. A
It
whole
was,
lot more blood, a whole lot more tits.
Yeah,
he was actually not the one I was going to go with, but I really wanted to pick him for episode 3, just because of like I'd like to see like the Verhoeven violence just like applied, but just like toned down a little bit and
I
applied to like
I
limitless Anakin.
I could see Michael Ironside popping up as a bad guy or, Peter Weller popping up
Ooh.
as a bad guy or something like that, you
Ooh.
know?
Ooh, both.
yeah. It's actually a shit. Yeah. So Michael Ironside is the kind of actor who shows up in all of these B sci-fi movies in the 80s and 90s. Who I feel like if they made these movies,
He would
then
be in them.
Michael Ironside would have showed up in them
Yeah.
He
eventually,
would be like the gruff soldier or the gruff
like the Captain
renegade.
Panaka.
Yeah, what a good guy or a bad guy. He'll be like the renegade sort of character, just gruff, but like get shit done.
Let's move on to episode 2. What characters are in episode 2 that aren't in episode 1? There's Count Dooku,
There's Jango Fett,
Dexter
but he
Jettster.
would
Oh, Jango
Oh,
Fett.
Jango Fett.
Yeah.
How,
but
Jesus Christ, how the hell did we all forget about Jango
yeah,
Fett?
but he wouldn't take off his helmet in my version, so it doesn't matter who plays him.
Maybe Jeremy Bullock still would have played him.
Maybe.
Probably, actually, yeah.
He was a real actor.
Yeah.
I mean, if they are clones, then it should have been him.
Actually, that would have been another good character for Scott Glenn or Lance Henriksen as well.
Oh,
I'm,
yeah.
Vernon Wells from Mad Max 2 and Commando.
Ooh.
Oh,
I
yeah,
like-
that guy.
That's kind of based off of Boba Fett's original voice because he sounds like such a
Oh.
villain, such like a
Yes.
over
Yeah.
the top villain, like just his voice does. So that's how that's the kind of person I would picture under that original Boba Fett mask.
You know who I thought might be old enough because he popped up in the 90s, but I don't remember seeing him so much in the 80s so much was Michael Wincott. And I
Yeah.
feel like he's a
Ah.
guy that could be like any of these roles, you know, including Jango Fett or Darth Maul or
I
whatever.
thought of him, but I forget how old would he be in the mid 80s?
I don't know because I know in the like he might be too young. Let me look him up. I feel like
He
he's
would have
been around
been
for a bit.
he would have been 28. No,
That's
I'm
old
sorry,
enough.
30.
Yeah,
No, I'm
'cause
sorry.
I feel like he's born in the 50s, like late 50s or something.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
would have
late
been.
50s, sorry.
You're right, Josh. He would have been 28, 27 when making this movie. So like that, he still, I'm sure, had a voice back then. It doesn't change
Yeah.
that much over 10 years or 5 years.
Maybe Dexter Jettster.
Jesus.
Oh, Bail Organa.
Oh, yes. Oh,
So
good.
I
Jimmy
do have
Smits.
a pick.
Just
Yeah,
keep
Jimmy
uh,
Smith. Just keep
My
Jimmy Smith.
pick for Bail Organa, Timothy Dalton.
Oh,
Ooh.
nice.
I actually like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's good. I really like that.
Well, also too, like if he is the adopted father of Padme, it's also a good opportunity to cast
Of Leia.
anyone you want. I'm sorry,
Right.
yeah, of Leia. You can cast anyone you want. You know, I mean, he could be like, well, I can't think of anybody right now. He could be Keith David. Like he could just be like, you know,
Or
he
David
could be-
Keith.
or David Keith. That's a yeah. Either one, take one. You know,
Or David Carradine.
there you go. what's the name of the Dexter guy? What's the name of the guy from what's the name of the guy who's in Scrooge who is in New York Dolls? Dexter Poindexter?
Oh yeah, Buster Poindexter.
Dexter Poindexter? He could play
Yeah.
Dexter in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
David Johansen is that guy's real name.
Okay. Okay. I see that.
Like I say, working in a diner.
Or I
Yeah.
got Clancy Brown as
Ooh,
Bail
that's
Organa.
good.
Oh, nice.
That-
He
oh,
was
that's. Oh, I like that too.
as who?
I like that too.
as Bail
As-
Organa, Clancy Brown.
Oh yeah, he would have been good because he was a cliche choice of mine for Darth Vader if he were to be a separate character. But that's a good choice for Bail Organa. That guy's got a
do
lot
we-
of authority in him.
He does. Does anyone have any picks for Count Dooku?
I mean, honestly,
Uh,
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Like, just keep the skin
Alright,
going.
Yeah, he would have got cast as Count Dooku. Would be Christopher
And he would have been able to fight his own fight scenes back then.
Yeah. Was he your pick, Russ?
Yeah.
Fry, do you have a Count Dooku?
No, I was actually thinking, you know how he's like, he was Yoda's Padawan? Like, I don't know if this is a bad idea or not, but like, if he was actually from, instead of being brought to him like when he was a baby, like, he was actually from the same planet as Yoda, either the same species or like a different one. That,
Oh,
So-
interesting.
so maybe he wouldn't even be, I mean, he would obviously have a voice actor, but maybe he wouldn't be an actor. But if he was a different species, but still an alien, or still like kind of like a pretty like visually complex alien race, that I would either want Raptor England or Ron Perlman and make up. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Can I piggyback on that? The puppeteer, it could also be Jim Henson doing the voice. So Frank Oz is like,
Oh yeah.
you got a few minutes.
Ooh.
And so, because Jim Henson didn't have time to do Yoda then, I was like, well, now it's your time to hop on board. I don't know, just to,
Interesting.
No.
Very interesting.
So I agree also, Christopher Lee, but here's my left field one. Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
He was in Dune and Excalibur
Life Force.
and Life Force. And he played Carla.
No, he did. I didn't know that.
Yes, he played Carla in the BBC Alec Guinness version of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Hmm.
And so I started thinking of the formidable opposite number.
Sure.
Could you see Patrick Stewart as like
Oh,
a
fuck yeah.
fallen
Yeah.
Jedi?
Hell yeah. If you're gonna go younger in age, Gabriel Byrne, I feel like makes a good fallen, jaded sort
Oh,
of
yeah.
character.
yeah.
You know what? I actually had him as, yeah, I know he was only like mid-30s at that point, but as Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
But if you look at the like a movie
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Gothic, the movie Gothic from around that time, he has like long hair.
Yeah.
And I feel like he could pull it off.
Well, he was also
like
in
it.
Excalibur with Liam Neeson and Patrick Stewart and all these other heavies.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
So good point.
They all played like swashbuckling knights, so it's like, yeah, just choose one. You know, it's like they're all very good.
I feel like Fry and I have been watching the same Ken Russell movie marathon at some point.
Mhm. Ian McKellen
Um,
could have been a good choice back in the 80s.
Ooh,
I'm
Wow.
not sure how
interesting
many
choice.
movies he was doing, but he did like the Keep with Michael Mann.
Yeah.
But like
Mm.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
but
okay.
he could definitely pull off a Dooku vibe in the 80s. Or even Qui-Gon. Like he's like make a Jedi, put Ian McKellen in the role, and it's like, and he can do it.
I see that. Who do we think would have directed episode 2? So this would have been 1989 if we're doing every 3 years.
Sure.
Catherine Bigelow.
Yeah, honestly, like my top
I agree with
choices
John, yeah.
were
Bring back
Bigelow
Bigelow.
and James Cameron, but my boring choice would be Ron Howard, just because I
He's
feel
my
like
choice.
yeah,
He's
if
my
they gave
choice,
him the shot
because-
of Willow in 88, 89, it would have fit
9, he
just as
would've-
well.
Yeah, he's my choice. What about you, Frey?
Wolfgang Peterson.
Oh,
Wow.
You know what? But actually, he was in my. There's a little bit of a headcanon to this because he would be the one that was originally attached to episode 1, and he had to drop out. That's when John Carpenter comes in. I forgot to mention that another reason why I was thinking John Carpenter is that the last movie before that was Starman, so he's already done like lighter sci-fi
Mhm.
stuff.
That's great. I love it.
But then Wolfgang Peterson comes back after Enemy Mine and Never-Ending Story was before.
oh fuck, he did
Or
Enemy
that-
Mine.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's
Um,
where I got my Lou Gossett Jr. from too. I was thinking,
Yeah.
Enemy Mine, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think.
But then,
Yeah.
so the droid factory scene, I was thinking that would feel like Das Boot.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
So my thing in terms of the special effects showcase for episode 2, so this is 89. I'm thinking the Abyss. I'm thinking the water tendril.
Yeah,
And I'm thinking Kaminoans and water on Kamino. So I'm thinking maybe the Kaminoans would be like weird water tendril creatures, or maybe their probe similar to like the weird mechanical eyeball for Jabba's palace. Like maybe the
Mm-hmm.
Kaminoans would have like a water tendril, sort of like an object. I mean, actually, sort of like the water tendril in the Abyss, except it would be on this planet. I think George Lucas would have seen what the technology was capable of and would have tried to figure out how to utilize it, because, you know, his like way of producing these movies was kind of in concert with the art department and with ILM. Like they were sort of bouncing ideas off each other. So I think if like they said to him like, hey, like we can do like a mechanical creature in CG really well, or like, hey, like we can do water really well, like he would have then gone off and like written like a water monster or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he would have just taken that thing and wrote it all the way to the envelope that he could have pushed it to the envelope. It's funny because when I thought about like a sequence and again in my thought experiment, I also wrote a kind of an outline for this episode as well. But it's like I didn't think of it as like a special effects sequence as much as just like a visceral experience sequence. And I think like at this stage in the game, we're post a lot of gritty action movies, we're post Vietnam movies, we're post a lot of things. And to kind of go with like the James Cameron, Kevin Bigelow sort of vibe. And also around this time, if he didn't do Glory, maybe even someone like Ed Zwick, you know, Edward Zwick.
Mm.
And it would have been interesting to see like, well, what would like an actual like Jedi, because that's Attack of the Clones, it's the Coliseum thing. So
Yeah.
in my head, it would have been interesting if it was like kind of a more visceral, like in the mud, and it was like a real like post like this is a post Vietnam generation of movie making, post Platoon and all that. So like, what if there was like a fight where there's like in the mud and everyone's almost like calf deep in the muck, and like and there's just like glowing lightsabers and lasers flying around and like explosions and shit. And then like
That's
to
cool.
me that would be like a huge epic sequence. But I don't know if
Yes.
it would be like on par with maybe like how like the Battle of Endor was like a blowout, but it wasn't because of one special effect. I feel like this would just be like the blowout Helm's Deep sort of like action sequence of the trilogy might be like the Jedi battle with the separatists in the mud fighting Dooku or Vader, and things just get all sorts of fucked up. Not like in a rated R way, but just like in a
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
like glowing light, even though everyone's caked in mud and like and just kind of going at it. And then you can see like flashes of like Anakin taking risks or like going beyond that he should go beyond, and you can see the shades of his darkness forming in episode 2, but they still save the day, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah, it's cool.
is that a special effects sequence? I don't know, but it's a great action sequence. you know?
No, I'm with you. I think you're right. Like the 80s action movie, it's like the heyday of that.
Yeah.
So these movies would have absorbed a little of like what was sort of floating
Yeah.
around in the
Like
ether.
well, Predator is coming out the year after, but like even then, like if you think about like the flares and the last battle, like Glory and stuff like that, like shit like that, where it's just like
That's cool. Yeah, that's
shit's like
cool.
out of control, you know, and it's just kind of like chaos. Like you never, it's Star Wars, but I feel like up until Rogue One, you didn't quite see the chaos of war
Yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit, you know. So I
Yeah,
think
well,
they
I
would
mean,
have,
you sort of do in the end battle in Attack of the Clones, except I feel like it's lacking that really visceral, gritty
yeah,
feel because it's all
because
computer generated.
it's all not there. It's like
Yeah,
so you see a million troops and lasers and stuff, but it's like, but it's all not there. It's just like, but if you had
yeah.
real
So, but if
people,
you had to
you would
shoot
actually
it,
have to
yeah,
shoot it and make it look beautiful, you know,
right.
or exhilarating. It would have been a real bitch to shoot.
Something I was thinking of, like, this, I don't have like a special next breakthrough, but I was thinking like as these movies go on, like they would like kind of start to become more self conscious about like their original aesthetic, because in a way that, because I think the prequels, like George Lucas kind of like went with that, stuck with it, and it was kind of unique looking for its time period. But if it was kept on going like without a break, I feel like he would get into the late '80s and they would be trying to find ways to like. I think they would be, like you said, they would add some CGI, but as much as they could, but there would still be practical effects. And
For
I
sure.
think you would see, at least in the first movie or the first two, you might see like, there's like bladder effects, like where like you will have like practical effect and like you can shoot like air to it and like it'll look like a
Yeah,
pulsating, like whatever.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, like you ever see like the Twilight Zone movie, the Joe
hmm
Dante, like the one where the cartoon characters come out and they're
Yep.
just like,
yep.
yeah, that kind of thing. I feel like you would see a little bit more like that. And like I was thinking, that's what, for that reason I was thinking briefly, like, could I make Joe Dante a director? I think that would That wouldn't work.
I have a director throw in there. You just made me think of Robert Zemeckis, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is really exactly that. It's like how do we
Yes.
Yes.
seemingly blend animated effects, in this case, 2D cell animation with the physical space, and it's like they're using tennis balls on sticks and animating over it, and they're doing all these things, these like basically pre CGI techniques. So I feel like he might be a great choice. Could have been for Attack of the Clones, or
That would have been really wild,
you
actually.
know,
Like the idea that maybe they would have tried to do something like that. Like my only thing is that I think Lucas was he was trying to figure out how to do things faster and more like effectively. So I feel like the laborious nature of that, I think probably wouldn't have appealed to him. Though, but the thing though about that though is that
he should have animated Howard the Duck.
arguably, yeah. Um,
Everything but Howard the Duck is animated.
Yeah, but that is an interesting thought experiment. Like the idea that, you would have a movie that combined like traditional animation to that scale and that interactive. Like I can't really escape that now that you've mentioned it, because that is sort of like the 80s equivalent of what the 99 2000 prequels were, right?
Yeah. I mean, I saw that movie in the movie theater. It blew my mind. I was like, how are they talking to? I'm like, I remember hearing about how they did it in the behind the scenes, like Entertainment Tonight sort of thing. But
Yeah.
as a kid, I was like, they're talking to cartoons. They are there. It's how is
Yeah.
how is Daffy Duck playing the piano? How is this happening?
No,
Uh,
Zemeckis is a really good
Zemeckis.
choice.
Also, I feel like at this time too, Stan Winston will probably be cutting his teeth on like aliens and makeup and all that during these movies. Like I feel like he probably would have been either banging on their door to be part of it, or they would have asked him to come up with a creature or two while they were making the trilogy.
He would have done
That's a good point.
Grievous.
He maybe could have done the Jar Jar suit. You never know, you know?
Oh,
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Probably any of them. I mean, especially coming up
Yeah.
with Stan Winston was T2, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but he
yeah.
did like the Predator, he did the Queen Alien, he did
Yeah.
like all sorts of
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, so he was coming up right then, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe James Cameron, if he did episode 1 or episode 2,
He would have gotten Stan Winston on.
yeah, he would have
Yep.
gotten Stan Winston to do the
The
Jar
Droid
Jar
Army.
suit.
Yeah,
Or
because
the Droid Army.
because they also did the
Yeah.
Terminator together. He made the Terminator
Yes.
exoskeleton and all that.
All right,
So like,
I'm done for the day.
like, so,
That's it.
so he already had to got it like in his pocket.
Maybe even one of the reasons why he would have appealed to Lucas, he would have been like, okay, like he did like a droid thing. Like, well, let's give him even more money and see if he can do a zillion of those.
Let's see if we can make 2 droids.
The opening of the Terminator, like the
Yeah, the future battle.
Oh, so
Yeah.
good.
the future battle, like he could have seen that and been like, okay, like I wanna do that.
Honestly, I think that one scene is the perfect demo reel to do Star Wars, just to show him the opening.
Yeah,
Just show him the
absolutely.
Terminator, and he's like, "All right, that's what I'm saying." Like he could totally, but you have the job, you know. It's like, and that movie is totally from Star Wars. It's Star Wars inspires James Cameron. James Cameron gets recruited to do Star Wars, you know.
Right, exactly. Okay, I really like that. Let's move on to episode 3. What new characters are in episode 3 besides General Grievous? Are there any?
Not really. Grievous and Mon Mothma and stuff like that, but you can get like the same actor to play Mon Mothma. She was just in
Yeah, I
Return
mean,
of
if
the
Mon
Jedi.
Mothma was
Yeah.
there, they just would have hired the actor that they got for Return of the Jedi. She would have just
Right back.
returned. She was in a show, a British spy show from the 80s that I really liked, and when I realized it was the same actor as Mon Mothma, I was like, oh fuck, Mon Mothma's in this. Mr. Palfrey of Westminster is the name of the show.
Hmm.
It's the most British sounding name of a show ever. Carolyn something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So who would sorry. Who would have played General Grievous? Would he have been an actor or would he have been
He would have been a voice.
he would have been a voice? Are we thinking it would have been like
part animatronic, part CG. Like they would have gone. That I feel like he would have been the character they would have went crazy with in 1992.
It would have been Kane RoboCop 2, kind of like a mix of like TV screen.
Oh yeah,
and
with like Phil
claymation
Tippett with Phil Tippett did the stop motion for
Phil Tippett
Kane
coming
and
back
RoboCop
home,
2.
yeah.
Who is also Tom Noonan, if I remember correctly.
Yep, correct.
And
Yeah.
is also and is also directed by Irvin Kershner, who did
That's
Empire.
right. It's like poetry. It rhymes.
I love it. So episode 3 during 1992. Okay. So General Grievous, you think would have been a voice?
Hologram face.
Hologram face. I like that idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was
Uh,
just thinking, just kind of like a slightly more advanced, like T-1000.
absolutely.
Yeah, like maybe he would have been like a liquid metal.
Ooh,
He could have been like a liquid metal
tentacle
creature.
appendages.
They could have also used, like, if he had the same sort of plate armor that he had, I feel like that would have been practical, but then they could have used, like, CG to do, like, Iron Man things with his armor and
Oh,
gadgets and stuff. Like,
well, so the problem with that though is like the motion tracking then
yeah.
wouldn't have been as sophisticated. So they would have had to do it manually, probably. Actually, I
Well,
don't know.
who knows? But I'm just saying, like, they would have experimented with, like,
Yeah.
the robot nature of him, I feel like
I just
more
like the
with
phrase "doing Iron Man things."
yeah. Which Iron Man at the time was, like, really state of the art, so but also Stan
Yeah.
Winston, built the suit, I think, for that too.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah, that was when they
Um,
still had physical suits. Yeah.
yeah.
R.I.P.
I will say though, if Catherine Bigelow's not doing it in 1992, David Fincher would have made a good,
You
uh
motherfucker. That's my pick for director. Well,
What
so because it works perfectly because Alien 3 was 92. So
Mhm.
instead of having a disastrous experience on Alien 3, he would have had a
We have
disastrous
disaster
experience on
experience in
episode
Star
3.
Wars. He has the Return
On
of the
episode
Jedi
3.
experience, you know, because he did, like,
Yes.
stop
Yes.
motion photography or something for it.
He was a model cameraman on Return of the Jedi
Mhm.
for ILM. And so, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like he would have gotten his first shot at directing a movie. It makes sense with his music video and his model background that, George Lucas would have hired him to direct the last
Yeah.
Star Wars.
There are options. I mean, even Tony Scott in '92, still huge. He probably could have done it then too.
Yep.
Well, so my thing though is that I feel like in 92, George Lucas would have been making Star Wars movies nonstop for like 17 years. I feel like so close to the finish line, he would have been exhausted. And that's why he would have been willing to, like, he doesn't want to have any more arguments with a director who has like a vision. Like he
Yeah,
would just want,
get it
so
done.
like, yeah, like, so that's why the idea that he would hire someone who looks really promising but has never directed a feature before, work in the model shop, so like at his company, so he knows how special effects work. The idea that he would trust the last movie to someone who'd never directed a feature before. I mean, like you were saying, Fincher was obviously hungry enough to direct the second sequel in the Alien franchise, like,
Mhm.
which I don't think like was like a young director's dream first project, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know.
I mean, to some, yeah, but I feel like he was more. I don't want to say naive, but it's like Alien 3 was the thing that like broke him and became and made him who David Fincher is. You know, it's like I feel like he might. I feel like before Alien 3, he might have been a different filmmaker with more of a naive sort of sense of like, oh, they're gonna let me do this movie. I'm gonna do this movie I want. It just like shattered. He still doesn't even talk about it. Like he won't
Yeah.
talk about the movie publicly at all, which is insane.
In my head canon, this hypothetical David Fincher directed episode 3 from 1992 has a very similar story to his experience on episode 3. It's just like a total nightmare, and like, and George Lucas is like, micromanaging everything, and he's like, no, it's not like that, it's like this, and then like, he reshoots like whole swaths of the movie, and like the exact same thing happens to David Fincher.
Right. Well, you know, famously, David Fincher will do like 87 like takes of like somebody's like
Which is
showing
the total opposite of what George Lucas is.
exactly, which would
Yeah.
mean they would butt heads like crazy.
I just like the idea that it's like that's his judgment day. That like it's just inevitable. I was thinking for similar reasons as David Fincher, Joe Johnston. It's
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
and plus he
Yeah.
had the Rocketeer a couple years before that. I think that was a hit, but still.
yeah,
I
that's
I
think
think
that
you're right.
I think that's the most probable choice. Like if it were to happen, it probably would have been Joe Johnston. That
Yeah.
probably
because
would have been
he's
it.
already on the team, so it's like
Yeah.
a perfect
Yeah,
choice.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
100%.
agree. I'm taking
And
that as my
also
own.
Robert Zemeckis for that, just because they could do some Forrest Gump. Not that he has to be the director for that to happen, but like some
Mhm.
Forrest Gump style visual effects for Anakin. And
Maybe
Sure.
maybe they got like some Alec Guinness footage from like
Yeah.
fucking from an older movie of his, and they like repurposed it.
Bridge on the River Kwai or something like that.
Yeah, to create sort of like the end scene to link up the two trilogies or something. I don't
Hmm.
know.
I think Joe Johnston is probably the one that would be.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense.
I was just thinking of what the Galactic Senate scene would look like, and I think it would look the same, but they would have like a combination of
actual-
matte paintings and like also like forced perspective, that kind where they would put the background like really close up to the foreground and just have, because there would be
Oh yeah,
aliens of
yeah.
different sizes, and that I think you would still have the ET cameo, and like that's how they do that. They would just have like a little bunch of little people like far away dressed up as ET, but with the fake fort background in the foreground. But I feel like the
I,
effect would look pretty much as it does in a.
Yeah.
I wonder if with the duel on Mustafar, the volcano planet, if they would have done something more in the vein of like a huge set, like the way they did Dagobah and Empire, or the way they did the entirety of Legend, how they make it look like a forest, but it's just like all in the studio. So I feel like the volcano planet, maybe they could have went to Iceland or something like that, but I feel like to get that epic scale of it, they would have just had to fake it. And
Sure.
without all the CG, that probably would have been like a magnificent set. They
Mm.
probably would have added some like crazy Sith looking statues and shit like that, because they're gonna be like, well, if it's a set, you might as well do whatever we want,
A
uh,
lot of
or
red
maybe
lighting. Yeah.
yeah, or maybe like the pipes would have been like on that like Tim Burton Batman scale of like matte painting and like architecture. So I feel like
Well,
it would have been
oh
interesting,
yeah. No,
you
that's
know?
interesting.
Oh, you're thinking like the
Um,
1989 Batman
Yeah.
Anton first set. Yeah.
Yeah, just sort of like I wonder what they would have done with like the factory sort of setting that they have in the prequel and the actual 2005 movie, but like make it practical. They would have I think it would have been, I guess, more visceral. To
well,
find that better
Yeah.
word.
so what's interesting is that when I think of the Duel on Mustafar, the closest original trilogy analog to the Duel on Mustafar is the Duel on Cloud City between Luke and Vader.
Mhm.
It's that very similar, like, you don't know exactly what all of this stuff is for,
Yeah.
but like there is like a sense that it does something, and like you kind of move through it, and like I feel that they were going for a very similar thing in episode 3 with like that like
The
mining
shield
factory or
thing.
whatever it is. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, there's like a logic to how it sort of works. They don't ever really explain it, right? I feel like it would have been some combination of matte paintings and sets.
I think it's established that he does get burnt up, so they probably would have had some sort of lava flow thing, even if they
Right.
faked it
Yes.
with gelatinous slime substance on set or
Yeah.
something. I don't know, but
The other thing I was just thinking is that we're talking about 92. We're also talking about the time of Young Indiana Jones, where they really were playing around with digital effects and like, crowd duplication
Mhm.
and doing set extensions and stuff like that. So maybe they would have done it like that somehow.
This is also post Temple of Doom, so
Right.
they've already had those sets sort of figured out, and I
Oh,
feel
that's
like you're
true. That's
yeah.
true.
So I feel like they would have done a combination of, like you said, of just real actors and like other actors with CG and other scenes. But for that scene, I feel like 1992 analog budget with some CG uh boosting. If that, I don't even think they would have done it so much for that, but I don't know. I just think it would have looked really cool. I
I
want to
mean,
go in a
Dante's
fucking
Peak is only a few years off, so I mean, like,
Uh, would Star Wars have still maintained the level of popularity that it had we gotten a new movie every 3 years completely unbroken versus have it go completely dormant for 16 years to build up that anticipation? I don't think it's wrong to say that no movie has been more anticipated than episode 1 of Phantom Menace in 1999.
Yep.
Do we think that we would have had like Star Wars fatigue by 1992? Like, do you think these movies would have continued to like shoot up to number one highest grossing movie of all time, like year after year after year?
I think it would have went the same route as like maybe James Bond, which is everyone loves James Bond. It's always an event when a James Bond movie comes out, but it doesn't hit the same sort of hyper attention and crazy marketing that like a new Star Wars movie does. And so no, I don't think people would have I don't think people would have uh been so what's the word, high on Star Wars if they just kept making movies every 3 years. However, I don't think people would have stopped liking them either. I just think they would have held like one rung lower on the ladder of popularity if they just kept having them come out.
Well, I guess we can look at it right now for
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's
Like
what's happening right now.
what Fry puts it exactly the way it is. The way it is today is the way it would have been in the 80s.
Well, my question is, what arguably happened with the four of us, we're the generation who came to Star Wars in sort of that dark time period where it did sort of have this like mythic status, and the fact that they were already made and were like a fact that just like always existed in the world. I mean, like in my mind, like they were like the stone tablets come down from the mountain, right? It's like, you know, the idea that like there were new Star Wars movies to be made is like, you know, a sequel to the Bible is coming out. It's like,
Yeah, honestly.
so I wonder if that nearly 2-decade gap had something to do with cementing kind of the mythic status Star Wars itself had in our culture. So, so while you might be right that, you know, right now is a good sort of reference or like a good example for how Star Wars fandom and the way people regarded Star Wars would have been in this hypothetical scenario, would you still have the intensity of the fandom? I mean,
I
maybe
don't
you would. I don't know.
you would still, I guess you would still have that gap that where it goes
Yeah.
dark, presumably after 92. But I guess it would still be different because you have 6 movies instead of 3. So even that might be, you would feel a little bit less like the Bible because there's just already so many of it. But then you
Oh,
would
so
still have that gap from 92 to like 2015 or something like that. But
wait, so maybe are we saying so we have a 16-year gap in between episode 3 and 2008 when they have episode 7 come out?
yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I totally agree with Fry. If they maintain the gap, especially the way they made, if there is a movie that came out in '92 and not a movie until 2015, The Force Awakens would have been the Phantom Menace level of hype, uh, compared to what the Phantom Menace was when we came out. The Force Awakens still had a lot of fucking hype, by the way.
Yeah, but
So
not like episode
no,
1 though.
but I feel like it would have had episode 1 hype
Yeah,
right.
if it came out, if there was a gap from '92 to when Force Awakens came out. That would have been, it just would have knocked the hype over to later.
Yeah.
That's all.
And that would have been
Well,
a 23-year gap if it was 2015 still.
well, I think
Yeah.
the big difference too is also like media and social media and being able to see so much footage and like spy shots and like kind of seeing a lot of the production happening before your eyes and where that would never happen in the past. So I think that was part of the element that kind of decreased that hype factor for the Force Awakens comparatively, not just the time gap itself, but the fact that we just have so much more access that like, all right, well, I kind of know what I'm getting into this time, and I've already been disappointed once. You know, hit me again. You know, so I don't know.
Those film magazines that you would buy like at an airport because like you see like a
Mm.
behind the scenes shot of some movie that you know is coming out. Like here's a picture of Harrison Ford in Last Crusade. I remember '89 or whatever when they were coming out with the first Ninja Turtles movie. I knew they were making a live action Ninja Turtles movie, but everyone's thinking like, well, how are they going to do it? And I saw one photograph of like Leonardo fighting like a foot soldier. And as a little kid in first grade, I was just like, holy fuck, it's a real Ninja Turtle. And it was just like it was just like one picture in the magazine. And that's all they had. It wasn't like an Annie Leibovitz like blowout like 6-page spread. It was it was like one tiny like thumbnail. It's as big as like your pictures on my computer screen right now of like Leonardo like blocking like a punch. And I was like, I cannot wait for this movie. And so I feel like those movies would have had like the equivalent of like instead of like a web page, it would be like, oh, Starlight magazine. Here's a picture of like,
Yeah, Starlog. Yeah.
like here's a picture of like, I don't know, like Val Kilmer in his robe or something like that. And I'll be like, oh my God, that's what Anakin's gonna look like. And then like picturing the movie in my head before it even comes out. So the level of excitement back then was like palpable, man. I mean, like we
Yeah,
didn't know
dude, it
anything
was
about Terminator 2 until the first trailer came out.
It
You
hung
know,
heavy in
and
the
like
air. You could taste it, and like,
like
a little
you didn't even
morsel.
know you didn't even know a movie was going to be made until you were watching another movie, and all of a sudden it's like next year, like Batman
Yeah.
Returns. It's like there's gonna be another
Right.
Batman movie. Holy shit! You know, like
Yeah.
it's just like we just didn't know. You know, ignorance was amazing for hyping up movies
The
back then.
dark times, I liked it better.
And on that note, I want to thank Russ, John, and Fry. If you liked what you heard, please visit trashcompod.com and please consider rating the show and leaving a review on your podcast platform of choice. You can find us all across social media at trashcompod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And we will see you on the next one.